So I thought I would try to nuance here the differences between the defined, undefined, and completely open center, really for my own understanding, and hopefully anybody else out there. But yeah, it's a little bit different, and so it's going to be a quick tour through the centers, but a nice little refresher. But we're going to try and focus mainly on the open aspects of it.
Okay.
Sound good? Human design reveals who you are energetically and who you came here to be. I'm Dana, your human design guide.
And I'm Haley, on this journey with you to uncover the power of human design.
Together, we're here to explore how embracing your authentic self is the ultimate path to a life of more freedom and fulfillment.
Welcome to the Human Design Hive podcast. Let's get into it.
Hello, Haley. How you doing?
Hi.
Sorry, I feel like I just yelled in your ear.
I knew we were starting, but I was still caught off guard.
I know, me too. It just came out. I was like, let's get started. Let's go. As I sit here and contemplate how to get started today, I figured, like you said, just use words, just dive in, just go
They
for
usually
it.
help.
Yeah. And I do feel like I have a little bit of insecurity around how we do open our podcast because everybody tells you should be so like thought out and planned out and outlined in your content and have a structured opening and out and all. It's just like, ugh, I'm so over it. I'm so over hearing all
Yeah.
the rules of how I'm supposed to do things.
Because you know what? That's not how either one of us really lives our life.
Never have. Yeah. But I mean, it comes in handy sometimes. Like I tell you, I'm trying to organize my thoughts and my notes and stuff and using a new organizational system, which is a challenge. But as I said, as we get into today's topic, you might understand why that feels more challenging to me and why it carries such weight in my life. But yeah, so I've been wanting to kind of get back into some of the nuances and the centers because I love talking about centers. I know we've been talking a lot about gates and some other things, but and whether or not we'll go through all these other things about centers. But it got me thinking when we have done centers before, or even when we talk about centers, we always talk about the defined center and the undefined center,
Mhm.
which if you're looking at your chart, defined centers are colored in, undefined centers are white. But there is this nuance in the undefined centers that some, myself included, some people will use the words open and undefined interchangeably,
Mhm.
but there actually is a distinction of what an undefined center and what a completely open center is, which would be what, Haley? You
Well,
got this. Come on.
I'm going to say uh, an undefined center, you don't have definition, which is created um, when two gates connect in the corresponding channel,
Hmm.
connects two centers. That gives you definition. So an
Hmm.
undefined, I would say you may have a gate defined, but the
Hmm.
center is not defined because that gate does not connect to anything. Whereas I would say an open center has no activation at all. It's got nada,
It's
nothing.
Ganada. You are correct. Gold star.
Yes.
It's been a while since I gave you one. But yes, so our defined centers in the chart are the areas where, as you said, certain gates that are activated in your chart. Sometimes you will have two gates that are activated on the other end. Each end of a channel creates definition in those centers. And so, but there's also lots of other gate placements in your chart that you most likely are going to have hanging gates somewhere. I don't know that I've ever heard of a chart that had
No hanging
all
gates.
connections. You're right. No hanging gates.
You let us know.
Definitely. Yeah. So anyways, so this has been part of human design that has been a little difficult for me in particular because I have three undefined centers that are also three open centers. So I don't have any undefined centers with hanging gates. They're all completely open. And so it is somewhat of a challenge for me personally, to know what it feels like to have a hanging gate in an undefined center. I
Mhm.
mean, I've got hanging gates, but obviously they're all in defined centers.
Mhm.
And I understand that pull of, say, like my gate 48 in the spleen. I also have just a simple split in my chart, which means I only have a couple gates, like gate 16 or gate 20 or gate 1. If any of those get defined by a transit or another person, such as yourself, see, I don't think, no, you don't bridge any of those for me, then I would have a single definite. It like helps, all the energy to flow.
Mhm.
So but I understand with my gate 48 being defined from the spleen center reaching up towards the throat, which is also defined, that there's a big pull there in that energy, with that gate 16, which is that gate of enthusiasm and zest. It's like kind of just jumping in and just doing it, getting it going. It's all part of this channel of talent. And the gate 48 already feels like it doesn't know enough, and then it really has this draw. I'm always looking for, feeling like I need to know more in order to get involved and get out there, but I don't really. It's just
Mhm.
this pull. So in an undefined center, which you have lots of, not lots, you have a handful, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You have 7 gates that are in undefined centers.
Mhm.
So yeah, all of your undefined centers has at least one hanging gate in it, which is good. Which is good for you. I mean, as a projector, it gives you more opportunities for more things to get defined, but you have a very wide split. You just have the head and ajna defined and the root and spleen defined. So
Yep.
it's like it would take a lot for all your energy centers to connect.
Yeah.
But I did notice something the other day when I was looking, is
Mhm.
that we actually do, even though you don't bridge those certain gates, when you and I are together, we are fully, our relationship is that 9 and 0 we talked about, where
We got
it's like,
Yahtzee?
yeah, we got all our centers defined. And I think it's even like a single definition. So, and that's interesting because I think it helps explain the uniqueness of our relationship sometimes.
Mhm.
Sometimes other people don't get it. It's like they can be around, but they don't really get in our relationship. We're like solid on our own.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's another topic though, another day. But anyways, so I thought I would try to nuance here the differences between the defined, undefined, and completely open center, really for my own understanding, and hopefully anybody else out there. But yeah, it's a little bit different, and so it's going to be a quick tour through the centers, but a nice little refresher. But we're going to try and focus mainly on the open aspects of it.
'Kay.
Sound good?
E.
Okay, so let's start out we always start top down. I don't know why I do, it's just what I do. Um, but either way, we
Because
start
that's
top
like
or bottom.
we go top down, usually we talk about it, but doesn't the energy flow bottom up?
Actually, it can go both ways because if you think about the head
Still
and
trying
the
to get
root,
to
they're
the
both
throat.
pressure centers. Yeah, they're the top is the pressure to the head center is the pressure to know, it's mental pressure to know what to think about, all this other stuff. And then the root pressure is the pressure to like get into action.
It's pressure to
But
do.
yeah, pressure to know, think, do. So yeah, so the head
Yeah.
center is this mental pressure center, source of thoughts, inspiration for the mind. It's open to source, and it's aimed at learning and learning new things, finding answers. Inspiration, as I said, helps generate new ideas and concepts as it comes through those three gates. If you have it defined, such as yourself in your
Mhm.
beautifully defined head, very busy minds, you are actually your own source of inspiration, and ideas can be known as original thinkers. And really, the defined heads are here to kind of pass along all those thoughts, those ideas, and those inspirations to those around us, because only 30% of the population, roughly, has the head center defined. So if it's undefined, then more open to inspiration. They draw their inspiration and ideas from the outside world, uh, more flexible in how they receive that information. They don't really identify as much with what they think. It's like things are meant to come through and see it from different areas. And what's interesting, they'll say, well, undefined is in general, they'll make the generalization that you don't know what's inspiring. It's hard to discern what's inspiring. But if you're completely open there and you don't have any of those three gates, there's no way for that information to filter through the ajna, through the head center to the ajna, then it literally, you do not know what's really interesting or inspiring. Like, you don't come up with it on your own, and you can kinda, I would say, it's like ping-ponging all over the place. And as I always knew this. I learned I've read this before, but then also maybe it just was out of my head. But reading it again and thinking about it again in this real context of being able to literally think about anything, but being unable to recognize when one thing is more inspiring than another. And I have to admit, I've been struggling lately with the podcast and like
Mhm,
ideas, things to come up with, things to talk about that are relevant to the audience, things that would be
mhm,
interesting to you, and things that we could talk about together. And I was just like, wow, I wonder if this is my open head, because I am here by myself with just the internet and no other people in auric contact that I'm really like picking things up from a lot. A lot of my contact is over the internet, which I still believe has an exchange there of
mhm,
energy. It may not have been in the past, but I think just the way our brains and our energy is changing, I think we can, especially that we can see each other. But yeah, so I was wondering about that. I was like, I maybe it's not that the ideas aren't there. It's just it's hard for me sometimes to really suss it out. I do tend to run things by people sometimes, but
mhm,
also with a completely open head, you're really unable to connect that mental pressure to the rest of your design because there's no connections there. So it can make it hard to know what to focus on and what to think about and what really matters and what doesn't. Even though I have a defined ajna, there's a disconnect between the two there. Unless I'm around you, and or if I'm transits, which there is right
mhm.
now while we're talking, we're transiting out of the last gate of 64, which is a mental gate, so that's good.
Hello.
Maybe it helped me finally. It really could have helped me in the last couple days. I really suddenly had all these ideas. Um
I had a couple too for
you do.
my own stuff,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was writing them all down and I was like, well, I don't know if this is something, but there's an idea. There it is. I'll keep riding that wave because we're gonna shift into gate 47 here overnight. So there you go. Maybe it'll make more sense over tomorrow. But anyway, so people with open heads may have problems making decisions because they're only guided by the thought that's in their head at the moment. I think you've seen that in me before. Sometimes when I'm around you, I can't even complete a thought.
Nope.
It's just something else will come up and I'll be like, "Oh wait, I gotta consider this and I gotta consider that and I gotta consider this." And you're just like, focus.
It was so difficult when we had to pick lunch for all of
Oh,
us.
don't even talk about that. Well, remember, don't ask me, what do you want to eat? I don't know.
That's why I finally just made the decision.
Yeah. So people with open heads, this uncertainty, this pressure, really, this pressure that this can be difficult. If the difference being that I'm aware of it because I have this knowledge of human design,
Mhm,
but for people who aren't, it could be really confusing and not feel that great. Can cause a lot of anxiety because this it feels like you get the impression that, because even though only 30% of the population is defined, 70, I don't know what the statistics are though on how many have a completely open head. It's probably for an open head, it may be more common because there's only 3 gates there
mhm.
that need to be activated in order to get a defined, well, with the ajna and everything.
And there's only, like, to get that
There's
definition, like you're
channels.
saying, there's the 3. That's it. There's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So chances are there are of that undefined grouping of the percentage, there could be quite a few in there that are completely open.
Mhm,
And so that makes you tend to make your decisions or be influenced more by what's happening around you, the other heads around you. But we also know that our undefined centers are are places where we, even though we gather more conditioning there, we're also where we're here to really learn, because if we're inconsistent in these areas, then that means we are learning from people who are consistent in these energies, right?
mhm,
And so the trick is here is to just, once you recognize that it's mental pressure and it's just that mechanics of the energy there, to allow it to, these ideas or inspirations to, and the pressure that can cause, to just kind of flow through you, to know that you don't really have to act on every inspiration or thought that comes into your head, and or to find an answer for everything. Hello.
mhm,
Because I do have that pressure.
mhm,
And so the wisdom here would be, is really understanding and being sensitive to the nuances of how that energy flows through, from the ethers into us, and can be channeled into actual mental processes and everything. Um, and so it can make you more able to discern who is really inspiring or not. Because once you can stop like resisting against not knowing and not understanding it and stuff, and allow it to just
mhm,
flow through, you do start to be better able to sample when you're around other people what's truly inspiring and what's just kind of whatever. And you could also become very sensitive to knowing what other people are actually thinking. Maybe a
mm,
little psychic. I don't know. So, so moving on to the Ajna center, this is really the continuation here of the head center. And really, these two together, when I try to explain it to people, or just people new to it, these two centers really do make up the mind. There's kind of,
mhm,
I think it's kind of splitting hairs what really goes on between the two there. You know what I mean? But your ajna is your center of mental mental awareness, how you think, how we process, conceptualize. It's where memory is stored energetically. And so you're also defined. I'm defined.
mhm,
Uh, and as such, have a more fixed way of thinking, a more reliable way of processing information,
mhm,
a little more fixed in our opinions. It's kind of harder to sway someone with defined ashna to a different way of thinking. Doesn't mean they can't be open to discourse and all this other stuff, but fundamentally, how they process things throughout their lives is going to remain pretty consistent. People who are undefined, of course, on the other hand, that would mean that they are way more flexible in how
mhm,
they see things, do
mhm,
things. What we I refer to as being very open-minded, because they literally are. This is your dad, open-head and ajna. He's definitely open-minded. I mean, I feel like I'm open-minded, but then I can see how his brain can work in lots of different ways. Whereas mine, what do I always say about myself? It's details and the minutia of things like
mhm,
that, the more logical sign. I mean, even though I have one logical gate in my ajna, but I don't like dealing with all that stuff. But your dad can think in broad ways. He can think in very detailed ways. He can be very logical. He has that ability to, because he does have, I think he has like uh 3 or 4 gates defined in the ajna,
mm,
but it's undefined. So he is able to connect in lots of different ways. And so he, and like others who are undefined, how they think and how they process and how they interpret things can change depending on the environment
mhm,
and who they're around. Makes sense, right?
yeah,
So if someone is completely open, in these areas, which it happens. I've seen it.
Mhm. Mhm.
It becomes very difficult for this person because they can really not know what or how to think about things, right? It's like there could be a lot more, I would say, anxiety, particularly centered around feeling different and not knowing, because even though there's lots of people who are undefined in the ajna, they still have a certain, with those defined gates, can give them a filter that they
Mhm.
usually kind of process things through. It can change how it's filtered through, but there's kind of like an anchor almost.
It's like semi-consistent there.
Yeah, yeah. And but these people don't at all. And so they obviously also have an undefined head. It's like they don't know what to rely on when it comes to what's inspiring or how to think or
Mhm.
conceptualize or anything. It's just like always changing. And especially it's going to change, of course, who they're around, or even throughout the month or the year. It can change depending on transits. And so, as you can imagine, that could make you feel like you're quite scattered in a lot of ways, and they can be easily influenced by other people's
Mhm.
ideas or ways of
Yeah.
seeing things, particularly authority figures of people, like the dogma, the structure. This is maybe propaganda. I don't know.
Th
When they can find somebody who like tells them this is the way to think or the way to do things, it can be easily latched onto, let's say. But
I
the
think
gift
that's,
here,
I think that's how
Mhm.
cults are formed.
Maybe, I mean, um, the undefined Ajnas here is roughly 52% of the population. So there could be a smaller number percentage of that, the people that are completely open, because there's just
Mhm.
a lot more gates and activations that are possible in the Ajna Center than there are in the Head Center.
Mhm.
But still, you got to remember, it's like we are, when you think about some of these definitions, you might be like, oh, I'm getting a I'm getting a raw deal, or why does it have to be that way, or what we do. We've got to always keep in mind that there is a reason that you were like designed this way. Some
Mhm.
would say why you chose to come in with this definition is to experience this and to become wise in this area. And the gift here in this completely open ajna is that this is a mind that is capable of learning and can think in all possible ways, understand any point of view,
Mhm.
be curious and interested in everything, and can use whatever is within their environment to connect with, to really kind of see it in a different way. And these are people that are going to be particularly open-minded in the sense that they're not so likely to have their own judgments or stereotypes about things, because they have a completely open ajna, and they're here to
Mhm.
show the rest of us that, kind of help us see, reflect back where it is that we might be the ones who are cutting ourselves off in that way from
Mhm.
new understandings and new ways of learning things, because we are so fixed or not able to be open to what's possible. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. Some people might see it negative, bad, annoying, whatever, not having the definition, but I don't know, kind of like think of it like you get the sampler platter. You get to
Yeah.
try it all, and then you get to decide, okay, this is pretty
Mhm.
good. Let's all go forward on that. Let's move forward on
Mhm.
that one. And that's trash. Let's leave that.
Mhm. Yeah, because definitely, like, say if you were undefined with defined, say you have a completely undefined ajna, or excuse me, I shouldn't say completely undefined. You have an undefined ajna, but you have one gate. Let's say it's gate 4,
Mhm.
defined, right? So, like you said, when there is definition created, they're going to tend to want to act or think in a more logical way. So it doesn't make them as open to experiencing some of those other ways of thinking, of just looking back at what's learning, or allowing new things to just flow through, like in the knowing circuit. So yeah, there is a nice nuance there that they can choose from. So let's move on. The throat. Now, this is an interesting one because this is pretty rare to have a completely open throat. I've seen it, but it's less common
Mhm.
because if you look at how many gates are in the throat, there are 11 gates in the throat.
Yeah. I think it's the
As a
most.
Yeah, it is because it connects to the most centers as well. And
All
it's
roads lead to
also,
the throat.
yeah. And so the undefined portion of the population is around 28%. And then you take all the gates out of that,
Mhm.
then it marks it down. Like I said, I don't have statistics. I'm completely open. But yeah, when you look at the throat, it looks kind of crowded in there.
It is crowded.
But this is the center for what, Haley?
Manifestation.
It's funny. And
Voice?
it's ironic that you're coming up with a
I don't know.
self expression,
Oh.
communication. So I said it's
Oops.
ironic you're not able to tell me what that is.
Whoops.
Yes, because
Oh.
expression in voice is how we manifest in the world. It's how things, oops, it's how things go from inside to the outside, is how we communicate, how we're
Mhm.
able to express what we need or what we're thinking, what we want to do, how we're feeling. Those are all the expressions that come through the throat as
Mhm.
it's connected with different centers, what we want, all that. So, those who are defined in the throat, of course, definition creates consistency. And so they can express themselves in more consistent ways. They are probably, you're used to their expression being a certain way, or, I mean, you can change tone, stuff like that, but they are generally more like what you're going to get from them in a sense of you can expect, like, what kind of, if they are defined through the Ajna. I think it's interesting because you'll find that depending on what it's connect to, what your voice will say, how these people communicate, they might say, I think a lot, or they might
Mhm.
say, I feel, or I know. You can kind of
Mhm.
depend on that's how they're going to see the world and how they're going to express is based on where it's connect. However, and so that makes not however, and so that makes them rather influential because they are the ones that are able to more easily express themselves. And that defined throat also encourages the undefined throats around them to speak. Because when you're undefined, you are amplifying that energy. And so there is a tendency to, especially get around, which you're going to be around more defined throats than
Mhm.
undefined throats, as we just said. You have this pressure to want to express yourself. You feel like you need to express yourself, and you might have the energy to tap into it, but you've got to be very careful because it can, well, I don't say careful like it's going to hurt you, but you know what I mean. Be more discerning in when you speak because this is a center that doesn't have awareness. It's
Yeah.
not a motor, it's not an awareness center. And so it is its own thing. We talk about it a lot with the throat center of needing to be recognized or to be
Mhm.
responding, that kind of thing. Um, and so the undefined center from birth always worries that will they be able to have something to say or something to do or way to express themselves, that they tend to like feel like they need to push for that attention because they don't internally feel that steadiness in their own expression. And so there's, like I said, there's pressure to like get attention at times, which sounds very negative, I think. And this may just be, I don't know if it's cultural or what it is, to like feel like it's bad to want to get attention. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like we're kind of taught to just be quiet and don't grab attention. But, anyways, I digress. So it can be difficult to find the right words. It can be difficult to know when to speak, but it also makes undefined throats very gifted at being able to connect with people because essentially whatever voice they connect with is going to be kind of understood by those that they're connecting with because it's really kind of their way of speaking, right?
Yeah, you're just fucking it back.
Right. And so when it's completely open here, these people may have no idea what to say or what action to take. They are often always speaking from a voice that's borrowed from someone else, something that they either picked up or a conditioned voice from childhood that is not right necessarily for them. It might be, it results in them quite often saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, or being completely ignored because they're not having their own awareness of what that feels like for them. They're just kind of reacting out of their conditioning.
Mhm,
And so, what makes this the wisdom here is with no activations. We already know that the undefined throat is good at communicating, but when it has absolutely no activations, it makes them really wise and gifted at knowing how to, not only how to speak to people, but also where people are coming from in that sense, because it can sense the voice that's coming through. They, if they can become comfortable with the unpredictability of what might come out of their mouth, depending on who they're around, and be
mhm.
more flexible in it. Like I said, they could become really gifted at speech, self-expression, possibly creative expression, music, writing, any of that stuff, because they're really understanding all the different ways that we communicate and manifest in this life. And it makes them really good at being able to discern who's really speaking authentically, which means also it makes them kind of, that is, if they're following their authority and they're clearing all this stuff out and allowing things to just flow through them, kind of who's telling truth can make you a little truth teller in a way,
Ooh, they
because
got a bullshit meter.
yeah. So might be a little advantage there with that one. For the G center, the G center, center of. I always quiz you on this one.
Self. Self and direction.
Yes, self love, direction. Yep, definitely got it. Yes. It's where the monopole lives. It draws to us
Ah.
those things that are correct for us, and so it is definitely about the self in the world here. And if you are defined here, you have a awareness of what your place is in this world and the universe. They know who they are. They know where they're going. Doesn't mean there's no moments of doubt and
Mhm,
wavering, but essentially, it's not like you're always moving forward going, I know exactly what I'm doing, but you don't question it so much, right? You don't question who you are.
this is
They
probably the one center I am envious of people that have it defined.
You shouldn't be. We remember,
I
you were
know,
made to be that way.
I
Well,
know.
but that's the lesson. I think that's part of your profile, and a lot of other things kind of putting pressure on you as well. But it is also what makes you who you are, in the sense that even though you don't consider yourself like an incredibly social being, you are a social chameleon. You are able to, like we talked about before, you can be friends with just about anybody because you can decide, oh, I like this group of people and what they do, and I like this group of people over here. And it does keep you tied to your family. You like who we are, I
Mhm,
guess.
mhm,
Makes you feel good. Yeah. And so, understandably, when they're undefined, you can tend to feel a little bit lost sometimes, a little alone, not really know who you are or who you should be, that kind of thing, or how you should
mhm,
be. There is that. But now that you know this about yourself, it probably could make it a little bit easier to understand why you feel certain ways around certain people and others. Like some people, I tend to either be by myself, or I don't find it as easy to have lots of different types of friend groups. It's not that I
mhm.
can't. It's just there's so much in me that's just like me focused. I love people, but at the same time, I'm just like, I'm okay by myself too. It's all right. And I know
Yeah,
you are too, but if you are completely open in this area, you can be definitely more vulnerable to, let's say, manipulation, because there's going to be this really unanchored sense in the not self of, because I want be clear. Maybe I haven't been clear so far when I'm talking about these behaviors of how you might these challenges. These are I'm speaking a lot about people who don't have a lot of awareness of that. If you have awareness of it, I think it takes the edge of it a little bit because you can recognize it.
Mhm.
But if this is the first time you're hearing some of these things, that's why they talked about the not self so much in human design because it creates a reaction. You're like, "Whoa, wait a minute. That I
Mhm.
don't like that. I don't like hearing that."
Mhm.
Explains a few things, but
I don't
I
like
don't
it.
know. I don't know. Because the completely open center, G center is always looking this like everywhere for self-identification, for love, for trying to find the right job, career, place to live,
Belonging.
anything with another person. It's just like it doesn't feel like it and it doesn't really have its own thing to anchor into. But not knowing, which I thought this was interesting to say that even though you may not know, you might have a fluid identity, it doesn't mean you don't know who you are. Like, you know that you're adaptable, you know that you can change, you know that you are sometimes like this and you're sometimes like that. You won't have like a fixed identity of like, I'm a Mormon or whatever. I don't know. But you might have, I don't know why I picked Mormons, but you are able to experience all the beautiful ways that people experience life and how they see themselves and all the different places they can go. Oh, the places you can go, said Dr. Seuss. Yeah, so there can be a tendency to, in the not self, feel rather untethered, unsure of themselves, easily influenced by others, allowing them to tell them, allow others to tell them how, who they are, what they
Mhm.
should do, whether or not they're even worthy of love or not. Like these are the things that they have to. It's a very vulnerable place, I think, the G setter in general, but definitely completely open like that can be um, rather vulnerable. But once you have this awareness, we always have in these open centers, even though there may not be an anchor in the gate expression, there's an anchor in your type, in your strategy, and your
Mm.
authority. And I probably should have mentioned that earlier. You should definitely lean into these areas because they will be what guides you, especially with a G center that's open to the correct environments for you, right?
Mhm.
So that means you need to either be responding, or you need to be informing, or you need to be waiting for an invitation to a place, that kind of thing. What the beauty here is this with this open center is to realize that they don't have to figure out or question like who or where will bring them to where they want to be. If they're just following their authority, their strategy, they're going to see that they're going to be led to lots of different places probably in life, but that is going to create this whole of who they are. There's
Mhm.
so many paths open to someone with an open G. They can literally be anything or anyone they
Yeah.
want at any time.
And it's also kind of really beautiful because they get to truly see all the different ways that we can be loved.
hmm Yeah, and like you said, and because of that, they can have that sampling platter of what feels better, more aligned for them. And like I said, they may not have a fixed identity, but they're definitely on a path to discover what being truly is for them. And to be an example of that for the rest of us, because
Mhm.
that's where their wisdom is. So moving on to the will center, which is also kind of closely tied to that G center. It is. It was originally before we became nine centered beings. This was part of the heart chakra.
Was it
And so,
packaged?
yeah, this is what is also referred to as the ego, the heart center. I call it the will center because I associate it with willpower because it is the identity of the self in the material
Okay, I have a
world.
question.
Sure.
Did you give us the percentage of defined and undefined for the
G center?
yes.
No, I don't think I did. Let me go back. So the G center undefined is 45%
Mm.
roughly the population. Now the will center then, I guess I'll just tell you off the bat since you don't
Thank
have
you.
to worry about asking me, is about 65% of the population is undefined.
Mm.
So you're definitely in the minority if it's defined. But this is the center. Like I said, it is the self in the world. It's the ego. It's
The
like this
material
is the
world.
material world. So it's associated with willpower, ambitions, your interests, your desires, with self esteem. There's a lot of tribal energy that connects with it. So it's the ability to support your people, ability to keep promises, and to make a contribution in the world. So if you're defined here, you may be characterized as being a little more willful, having more willpower, endurance, a more stable like self-esteem, feel a little more purposeful, like they're I find that these are the people that can motivate people quite a lot because that defined will center is very attractive to people who don't have it because when you're undefined there is this inconsistent access to your own willpower. You can tend to suffer from confidence and self esteem because it's very hard to stick to the promises you make to yourself and to others. It's hard to achieve goals because there isn't this like stick to it in this that comes with this definition in this center. As such, there's a tendency to try and prove your worth and your value when it's undefined. And so when it's completely open, it's really difficult in general to understand what has value and how to even measure it. That's the same with your own worthiness. Like it's very hard to discern what that is that makes your worth or your value. Definitely do not have access to a consistent willpower. And this whole thing about goal setting, that we have to have goals. I know your husband is like 100% set on goals. He loves goals, but he likes to measure
He loves
things
the
too.
ideas of them.
Yeah, yeah, he's undefined
W
here too.
He's not good at them either, and then he gets frustrated. I'm like,
But he should. But see, that's the thing. It's more about instead of setting goals, setting intentions. I want to move
Mhm.
in this direction, or this is where I would like to be. This is how I want to feel. This is what I would like to do. But yeah, because when you don't hit those goals, like you said, he's frustrated, but it also can chip away at your self esteem because you feel like,
Mhm.
well, I'm just a loser. I can't stick to anything. But it should tell you something that the majority of the population does not have this defined,
Yeah.
that there's not, even though we've been told that it is abnormal to not be able to stick to goals and have
It
willpower.
annoys me. It annoys me so much about that of our culture, that's just one of the other 14,000,000 things that's very
Mhm.
annoying.
Yeah. But I mean, if everybody here had willpower, I mean,
It would be chaos.
well, and it wouldn't be such a big thing, and their gyms wouldn't have this massive influx of new members after the New Year's, and everybody's like, "I'm gonna do it this year. I'm gonna do it." No, you're not gonna do it.
No.
You just one day at a time.
All you can do.
That's my motto, one day at a time. And so, as we said, completely open. These people could also unconsciously find someone who controls them. There is control in this, that gate 21, and tells them what matters and what doesn't. These people with these defined wills can be very influential. You could see the guru that people just follow them. They do whatever they say. They think, oh my gosh, he says if I do this, I can achieve this. And you feel great about it, especially if you go to their seminar or whatever. And
Mhm,
then you
mhm.
leave and you're like, shit, I'm just a loser. I still can't do it. This was an eye opener for me. This is my other completely open center, is the Will Center. Hello. And so what's also interesting, I don't like to admit this, but it says you can swing back and forth between an overblown sense of self importance and also feeling worthless. And I don't like to say worthless. I don't even like to say that, but I can understand the meaning behind that. Is it can change, who you are or who you're around, I should say. There are or transits. You could certainly feel because if you're thinking about if you're tapping into the full spectrum of what this center is about, there's going to be overblown egos. There's going to be people who feel really bad about themselves. And it's like, or what their contribution or what their value is, I should say. And so when you're completely open there, you can feel that, but there is also a gift there because you can understand that about people and see and feel what that's like for them. I I think this is, even though it's a struggle for me, especially when it comes to the value and worth piece. They say, especially if you have like a business and you have a completely open center to, or will center, to maybe you should consult with other people about what is a good price for things. You've helped me this
Mhm.
before. You're like, please don't completely undervalue this. It's like, oh, I okay, I didn't know. Or trying to put so much into something to make it worth something.
Valuable.
Right. And giving too much away. But I also know that I think this is what is part of my wisdom, is being able to, because I feel so strongly about people who struggle with their own worth
Mhm.
or value. Like I feel I can see that in people. Like
Mhm.
I can help them see because I can feel it from them. Because I quite often when I'm doing readings or whatever, I can tap into things that people might not really see or value in themselves. It's like can be a very simple thing, but they literally can't see it
I've been
or
there.
feel it. Yeah. And that's the wisdom there, is knowing that. And it's knowing who is in integrity. And this is a big one for me too. I think I have that meter. I mean, I have been susceptible to turning my power over to other people who I felt knew
Mhm.
more than me
Mhm.
about what was valuable. But now, having been through that enough and seen it happen enough times to realize I have like the meter, the fire alarm, whatever you want to call it, that goes off. Alarm bells go off in my head now when I see or experience certain behaviors from
Mhm.
people. It's easier for me to discern because I've experienced that wide range of behaviors. And so, yeah, if you have this center completely open, it's definitely, you need something to repeat to yourself over and over and over again, is that you have nothing to prove to anyone. And this is for undefined as well, but certainly with completely open, is that you have nothing to prove to anyone. And I, I, s- I think I posted it once, but I also have it somewhere as the reminder that you are valuable because you exist. You are
Mhm.
here. Everyone holds value. And if you want to know what it is you're struggling with, it hit me up. I might be able to help you with that. Okay, so moving on to the spleen center, which is
The
our center
spleen.
of, what's the spleen do, Haley?
Oh god.
Can't be so
Um,
excited about it and be like, I don't know what
I
it
know.
is.
Well, okay, it's fears, but that's not what it is. It's where a lot of things live, but it's not what it is. It's an
Fear is
awareness
very, I
center,
mean, that's a big component
but
of it,
it's
is
like
the
it's
fears.
the present. It's very much in the present, in the now, in the
Hmm.
eh.
Yes, it is. It's okay. Calm down. I want to ask you again. So it's instinct, it's survival,
And
it's intuition.
that's the word.
Yeah. It's our well-being, and it's a very ancient, what's not
Lizard
ancient,
brain.
it's not the word. Yeah, lizard brain. What's the word I'm looking for? Is it's our oldest awareness
Oh.
center, and it's tied to our immune system, which I know I don't talk about this as much, but well-being and your immune system, these kind of go hand in hand. There is this aspect, but it makes sense because that's what the instinct and the intuition is about, is to ensure your survival, right? It's
Mhm.
listening to your body. And what the people with defined spleens are or have, is they can maintain their well-being, their health, their lives in a more certain fixed way. It's less influenced by the environment around it. They have a more reliable way of tapping into their instinct and intuition, and quite frankly, I can tell you, they're not even really noticing it.
Nope.
You don't notice it, and as such, they can tend to not notice the signs of when they're not feeling well because they're not as sensitive to what's going on around them in that sense, right? Their well-being doesn't depend on the people around them in the sense that it doesn't fluctuate depending on who is around them. Whereas if they're undefined, their sense of well-being or health, safety, all those feelings are going to be heavily impacted by the people around them. And this is one of those centers that tends to attract each other because they say the undefined center, and particularly a completely open center, does not feel safe when they're by themselves. They don't feel good as
Mm,
much as a defined spleen center can. And so they have this innate sense of insecurity in the world. And so they can often feel anxious or alone, like or insecure when they're alone. So I said. So they're always looking for a source of security in others. And this is where these codependent and even toxic relationships can form because even though, let's say, a child with an undefined spleen, particularly completely open, is raised by parents who have defined spleens, but the parents have unhealthy behaviors, let's say. You could go to the extreme saying that there's like substance abuse problems or whatever.
mhm,
This is still being around those people, even though it's unhealthy behavior, still gives a little sense of security and safety to the
mhm.
undefined spleen because it's just tapping into that energy that they
It's
have.
it's a familiar the
Yeah.
familiarness of it is what feels good about it, even though it may not be healthy.
Yeah, and it's not the personality that comes out of it, it's the energy that is present, which is that feeling of consistency and safety, even though it could be a very inconsistent and very unsafe environment. Because the splenic center teaches us how, you just talked about fear, it teaches us how to properly handle and experience our fears. People who are undefined, especially if it's open, could have a very heightened sense of fear. They got to be careful about what they let into their environment. um, you're definitely more susceptible to just collective fears because it's just
Mm,
like heightened. If you think about it, it's like,
yeah.
"Arr,"
It's
I feel that way.
literally what the undefined and open centers do.
Yeah. So that can make them fearful of everything, feeling insecure, especially that's what I'm talking about now is the open, completely open. Since there's no filter to go through, they really don't know exactly what to be afraid of sometimes. They could be completely fearless because they don't really know what to be afraid of. Can lead to foolish and even reckless behavior, heavily influenced by the health of those around them. But then on the flip side of that, it could make them very gifted healers in that sense because they would be
Mm,
able to recognize when someone, they say undefined in general, but it's particularly a completely open spleen here. You think about being able to tap into the well-being of everybody around you. You could see the different levels of it, what it feels really when someone's feeling really healthy and grounded and whatnot, and when someone who's
mhm.
not, they can be very open to that. And so and so they're able to really tap into what it means to be nurtured, what it means to be healthy. Remember, also, the spleen holds our values for the tribe, it holds our laws, what we need in order to survive, right? And so they can become very wise in that area as well. Okay, so moving on then to the solar plexus on the other side there, which is all about what? Come on.
Emotion. Emotion.
Emotion. That's right. Emotions, feelings, experience. It's a motor. It's a motor that gives energy to our emotions. Uh, I mean, defined, it means you have a defined emotional wave. You are someone
Mhm,
who is going to have a wave like pattern to the way your emotional energy works. And the most important thing for defined emotional center is to know that there's no clarity in the now. You're here to take your time in filtering through your experiences, your moods, your emotions, all that stuff. It's a lot of creative energy, blah, blah, blah. Undefined. um, they feel the way their environment feels. A lot of times they're picking up on the energies of those around them. They experience other people's emotions more strongly than their own. You are aware.
mhm.
Hello, hello. And so oh, I didn't go to the, I think it's 50-50 here roughly on these two. I don't, you'd think
Did
as
you
many
tell me the
times as I said this.
spleen?
I thought I did.
I don't think you did.
45% undefined, close to
Mm,
50-50. Spleen.
Kind of speaking.
So solar plexus 50-50. I should know that. Why did I even like think I needed to
Hello.
question that?
Mm.
I say it
Hello,
all the
open head.
time. I say it all the time. Oh, I know. I was looking to see you. You have gate 37. That's all you have to find in
Mhm,
the solar plexus. And so, emotional energy for you is going to be when you do experience definition, there is going to be that filter there through gate 37 a lot of times, which is tribal. So, it's going to kind of feel things through the lens of like community and what's important to you there. So,
You
with
know
the
what's
completely open, hmm,
I just had a realization on, like, the stories that really get me are
mhm,
the ones where, like, a community comes together to help, like, someone or, like, help the community. Those are the ones that always get me.
mm. And you know what the ones that always get me is people who felt unworthy or
Mhm.
they didn't see their own value. Redemption stories,
Yeah.
like redeeming their value. Fucking love those. I know what you mean. That's funny. So, completely open emotional centers. Yeah, these people really struggle with knowing what to feel, how to feel. They could be very disconnected from their feelings. They could be very confused about what they are feeling and how to interpret it because
Mhm,
there is no consistency there. They are literally, everything is passing through them. Every range of emotion passes through them. If they let it pass through, that's the key. Not to hold on to it, let it
mhm,
pass through. So in turns, they don't know really what to desire, when to be sensitive, when to be passionate, how to recognize or deal with other people's moods, like I said. And this could be really, really challenging because this could really make them feel that there is something seriously wrong with them emotionally because it can seem like everybody else in the world, well, half the people around them have a better, well, I mean, it's not half people because they're going to be the half undefined, half defined, but then there are those like yourself going to have a gate. There's going to be a little bit
mhm,
more consistency to it, but so they can feel, that it's a challenge that there's something wrong with them. But that's the best advice is to understand. Please, this is why I think one of the reasons everybody should have a human design chart run so they at least know what their emotional nature is.
yeah.
Because I find that when people find out they're emotionally undefined, it changes everything in their experience as far as how they relate to people.
Oh, it's helped me a lot.
Yeah, to know that you're not an overly emotional person. In fact, you're meant to be emotionally very stable person, that you're just influenced and amplifying the environment around you.
Mhm,
And so what's really beautiful with the completely open center is they can help us understand the nature of these emotional waves because they're not going to be experiencing one fixed way, especially if you're defined. But, like for you, there's definitely going to be periods of time that you could track even throughout the month that you're going to have emotional definition because the moon's going to transit through that gate 40.
love the moon.
But we just went through a transit. The sun was just in gate 40 a week or so
Mhm,
ago, I think. Um, don't know if you had a little more emotionality around that time or not, but anyways, and so they can really reflect in the purest sense, someone's emotional state. These are people that would be very good at, I think, if they understood this about themselves, counselors and that kind of thing, because they could allow people to just, if, like I said, if they're understanding their openness, that what they are feeling is not theirs, it's the person that's in front of them. And imagine if someone who was out of touch with how they're feeling, maybe they have some emotional trauma, somebody could actually help them move through what they're feeling because they would almost be able to help them, I think, kind of tap into it and articulate and understand what it is they're feeling. So there's definitely gifts there and being open.
mhm.
All right, Haley, we're coming to the home stretch here. This is the one I forgot when I first made the list. Sacral center.
I mean, on one hand, I can't believe you forgot it, but on the other hand, I can see why you forgot it.
It's overlooked. Take it for granted, right? It is the center for sustainable energy, life force energy, vitality. It is the strongest motor in the
Workforce.
chart. Yep. Keeps the world going. And if you're defined, of course, you're a generator or a manifesting generator.
Mhm.
You have a, they say, inexhaustible supply of energy. It can be exhausted, but it comes back.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
What's the percentage split on this before we get too into it?
Well, since these are generators and manifesting generators, that means roughly 70% is defined, 30%
Okay.
undefined. Duh. No, just kidding. Cut that out. Duh. So, if they are defined, as we said, we know that they have the sustainable energy. They can do the work, build, be active. They live in response to what the sacral, they should be living in sacral response, following what feels good for them. They're undefined. That means they're a projector, a manifester, or a reflector, such as
Mhm.
yourself. Do not have that consistent access to energy, although they're very good at amplifying that energy for
Yeah.
those around them. But they have less endurance, can't
Mhm.
hold on to it as long. And the undefined, as we say, are supposed to learn when enough is enough, learn when to stop,
Mhm.
how to delegate work to others, be more protective of their energy in that regard. If they're completely open, they could definitely struggle with knowing how to use their energy, where to invest it, and even what this energy is all about. These could people that could be have the like drive and desire to want to do everything and be everywhere and get involved in any activity in any project because they're just always feeling the energy around them. And they can also become generally exhausted from being overwhelmed. The calendar's filled with activities because they can't tap into what it means to just like chill.
Just not.
Quite often they just wait for actual physical exhaustion to occur to know when to stop. Like they have to be just forced to stop.
Or they don't recognize that point.
Yeah. So the wisdom here, what's interesting is the wisdom here is obviously because projectors are in particular geared towards helping others guide and manage their energy.
Mhm.
So someone with a completely open sacral center would be particularly gifted in that area. And I think it's because the sacral moves in response, right? It's kind of a in the moment at times thing. It's
Mhm.
like responding to the pulse of energy from the root, or it's got its own things that are coming at it. How is it going to respond? So they, if they're completely open here, they're not being triggered or influenced by outside influences to know like what in the moment the sacral that they're around, what they're feeling in that moment and how to help them manage that energy and how to direct it and guide it. And so I when I was doing some research on this, they're talking about how a lot of times, not a lot of times, but it could be noted that some, well, let's just put it this way, Ra himself, who actually delivered the system to us here, had a completely undefined sacral center. He was manifester. And he was always talking about, a lot of the times, he was talking about generators and how he just wished they understood
Mhm.
what they had at their disposal and how it was supposed to work and how easy their lives could be, but we make it so difficult. And he was just always harping on like his greatest, especially when he first came into all this awareness, his main desire, I think a lot of times throughout all his work was, I need to wake up as many generators as possible, is what he would always say, because everything would be great if generators just knew how to manage their energy because we're the ones that are building the world.
Yeah.
And with 70% of the population not knowing what the hell to do with ourselves and doing things incorrectly, like
Mhm.
getting into them incorrectly. So
Yeah.
there's the wisdom there. All right, last one. Can you guess what it is?
Let's see. Is it the root?
The root of it all. Yes. So we started off this episode talking about it is the pressure
Do. That's how
to
I
do to get in to get
Yep.
into activity, to get particularly into physical movement. into growth. It's that pulse of energy that helps move things forward. It's also where adrenalized energy is, because it is that like you need the energy now kind of thing, which is what adrenals do, is they help give us that energy. Therefore, it's also dealing with stress and how we deal with stress. And so it helps us manage stress and have that quick energy when we need it. So if you're defined as you are, you can thrive kind of in the thick of things. You can handle your own stress and your own pressure, comfortable kind of doing things at your own pace. And you don't really worry about like hurrying them up or slowing them down. It's kind of like slow and steady. You'll not slow and steady, but you kind of know how long it'll take you to do things. You're comfortable with it. You don't feel the need to like, you don't feel as much pressure to like get her done.
I don't feel like if I wanna do something, I have to do it right in that moment or it's never ever gonna happen.
Mm, yeah. I can fluctuate on that. They Define can easily cope with routine tasks. Don't really have to put things off until later. You can procrastinate, but really it's not procrastinating because you'll know you'll get it done. Whereas undefined roots tend to procrastinate with no real understanding how long it's going to take to do something. They're just like, I just don't want to do it, and then they'll get that hit of adrenaline real quick and try to get it all done. So the undefined, as I just said, very sensitive to that outside pressure. It's amplified. They can feel that energy. There's this pressure to move forward, it's pressure to get things done. So you can try to get rid of the pressure, but you're never rid of the pressure. It's always there. It's going to be just kind of pressure on you. I think it's like 35% is undefined here. Yeah, 35% of people are undefined. And
Oh.
so with the completely open center, now undefined as well, these are people that are meant to not be in this high state of stress and pressure all the time. They're meant to be a little more relaxed and allow it to just kind of be aware of when it's going to flow and when it's not. It's a balance of not always trying to react. Open, completely open. There's like not a real innate way of knowing like what the pressure is, how to deal with it, when to rush, when not to rush. They can experience the full range of that pressure to move forward, from like really focused concentration to just like intense like hyperactivity. It's like you can experience it, but you're not really aware of it, like, or thinking about it. It's just there. There's this pressure there, right? Someone else's stress and pressure can tend to paralyze them, freeze them. They just kind of don't know what to do sometimes if there's a lot of pressure. And that without any awareness, they can allow this amplified adrenal pressure to kind of run their pace in their lives because they just believe this is the way to live. Like if you didn't know you have an undefined or open root, these might be the people that are always running on the caffeine. They're adrenaline junkies. They're just like, go, move, do, 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 can't sit still because they're not aware what they're doing. But that's not gonna last forever. I've been
Mhm.
in adrenal fatigue before. I have burnt myself out before by just continuing to manage the stress around me. And again, I've gone through all these, we've talked about the centers at length. I've been studying them at length for years. And this is why it's always good to talk about them again or look at things in a new way, because I had more awareness of how this played out even in my last job. I had this awareness of human design, and I was still allowing myself to be influenced and affected by the environment, the pressure that was around me, and not even realize I was doing that. I
Mhm.
could find myself, I mean, I would catch myself. I didn't do it all the time, but I could feel myself quite often as soon as I walk in there, just feeling very stressed, feeling like everything had to be done now. That kind of just like, oh, but then if I recognized it, I'd be like, this is really like not a, what are we, it'll get done. I found myself getting more and more in a place of like, why are we rushing? We have 2 days for such and such thing to happen. Like, what's the panic here?
I very
And
much live there.
Oh, really? Oh, you had your job of mhm.
I'm like, it's really not that important.
Yeah.
Also, I don't like when one of the partner firms, the guy that I work with the most, I don't like when he puts his deadlines on me
Mm.
because I'm like, That's not gonna no,
No, that's not gonna work for you.
no."
You're not maybe he has a defined route too.
Be like, "I'll get it done, and it'll
Yeah.
be great, but it's gonna be on my schedule, and it's still gonna be on time, just not your
Yeah.
time."
Yeah. Whatever that feels like, I don't know. So the potential here, then the gift in the open route is really understanding that you're not designed to be under this pressure of doing, right? It's like when you're by yourself, you are really enjoying designed to enjoy the peace that is around you. People with completely open roots and undefined roots really can benefit, which I know I do. It makes
Mhm,
sense now. Getting out in nature, getting away from people, just kind of getting away from that pressure from other people. Because again, our culture really thrives on how much you can get done in a short amount of time. Probably a large, well, those open roots out there, but you're not designed to do that. You're designed to understand how that how to deal with stress, right? How to manage stress and learn what it means to effectively handle that pressure. Like I said, with that environment I was in, I was like, we don't have to do it this way. We can prioritize certain things and whatnot because really we're just running off crazy energy right now. It's just like a habit, right?
mhm,
A lot of people's adrenaline fueled lifestyle is just a bad habit. And so it makes them wise about the pressure and what is there to like when to move things forward and when to be still. Because there's also, even though we talk a lot about energy and adrenalized energy in the root center, a lot of it is about not moving forward, right? Because it is like unpredictable when it's going to kick in. We don't know when it's going
mhm.
to kick in. And so you have to kind of be still and be prepared and be ready for when that energy is needed to get into action. And so these people,
Is the gate that's called stillness, is that the one that's actually in the root? Is that is
the
that
mountain,
52?
the mountain. Yes, I like that one.
Stillness.
The
Mhm.
mountain. I always associate it with your brother, of course,
I
because
know.
he's very tall. He's not very tall, but he is solid like
It's
a
tall.
mountain.
God, when he was giving me hugs when I left, he knocked the wind out of me.
Did he?
Yeah, when he went in for that second hug,
Oh, I didn't
he
know.
caught me right in the throat.
So anyway, so that's our journey through the 9 centers, and I hope it points out a little bit more that because I know that quite often people don't talk about the completely open centers because I've been looking for information. It's hard to find the little nuances there just to know that really if they are completely open, you're going to experience everything that that center has to offer and that you are really going to become wise about all the themes in that center because you will experience it purely if you are following your strategy and authority. You will be experiencing that purely and be able to really teach others about what that energy is best used for and managed and
Mhm,
whatnot. So that's that for today. Okay, you ready, Haley? You know what
mhm.
that means?
Ahem. The incarnation cross of the week.
Yes, it's time for the incarnation across the week. I didn't give you that. What's it time
And
for?
you
That's
didn't
all right.
set me up as much, but I still had to go for
You got it. You're a pro.
it.
Yes, so this week's incarnation cross of the week is sorry, I was uh
I I love you always say this week's incarnation cross of the week.
sorry. This week's incarnation cross is the left angle cross of the Clarion 2.
Ooh, what is a clarion?
A clarion is like someone who I always see it like it reminds me of like I see like a trumpet. It's like someone who calls out, someone who says, who tells, who brings the message through kind of thing.
Okay.
I don't think that's the actual definition. That's how I see it. You can look it up if you want.
I don't want to.
You don't want to.
Do you want me
Okay,
to?
so oh, I don't have to.
No.
So this cross, so it's a left angle cross. So that means it is
The profile starts with a 5 or a 6.
correct. And it's going to be later in the year. It's 2, Clarion 2. So the gates here represented are on the right-hand side of your body graph chart. You would see the top 2 numbers in black. It would be the sun gate would be 57, which is intuition. Earth underneath that would be gate 51, shock. On the other side of the chart, the red side, the sun would be in gate 62, detail. And then 61, gate of mystery, is in the earth, unconscious earth.
That's
All right, so
details.
can you, yeah, details of 62, 61's mystery. Okay, so can
Intuition,
you, mhm.
intuition, shock, details, and mystery. It's fun.
I don't know how you remember that. Like, it's your defined head and Ajna because, like,
I just keep repeating it as you're giving me the other information. I'm like, all right, I got to add on another one.
I mean, I don't know if it's just your defined head and Ajna, but you're always able to do that. And I just can't do it. I guess that's your fixed way of
I
doing it.
like repetition.
Yeah. Okay, so if you were born under this cross, the left angle cross, the Clarion 2, you're here to share your intuitive wisdom with others, guiding them out of their comfort zones by providing practical solutions and valuable insights. You feel compelled to speak up, especially when you see potential future consequences, and knowing that your input can be crucial for the growth of others. You're here to inspire and lead others by introducing them to some profound spiritual truths. You help people discover practical ways to live in harmony with their higher purpose, combining a spiritual perspective with real world applications. As a practical mystic, you offer intuitive insights that are both grounded and transformative. You have a unique talent for delving into the spiritual world and communicating your awareness to help others uncover their higher purpose. You act as a spiritual teacher, helping individuals find meaning behind their challenges and reconnect with their spiritual purpose, guiding them toward clarity, alignment, and growth.
Yay.
Ta-da. That is that. All she wrote. So, all right. Well, Haley,
We did it.
we did it. Hope that gave you a little more insight into the energies of the centers and any questions anyone might have. You can certainly hit us up with that. I think I saw the other day Spotify. You can leave comments now if you
Mm-hmm.
listen to our
Yeah.
podcast on Spotify. If you would like to leave a comment, please be kind.
Please.
Please. Um, and if you listen to us on Apple and you appreciate what we're doing or you like us just even a little bit, please leave us a 5-star rating, perhaps a really favorable review. We would really love that.
Yeah. I thrive off recognition.
Yeah. And as such, with comments and with questions, you can ask us a question or you can leave a comment. You can do both. I thrive in that and knowing what to respond to. And as I said, with my completely open head, I need things to be inspired by. So if you do have any ideas or questions, things that we could answer for you here on the podcast, we would really love to do that. It would be very helpful. So, with that being said, we really appreciate you listening to us today. We're glad you're here. And yeah, bye for now, Haley.
Bye.
You made it all the way to the end of today's episode, so you must have liked what you heard. If you did, make sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode, and perhaps leave us a good review. And if you know someone who wants to dig into all things human design with us, make sure you share the Human Design Hive podcast with them. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks for listening.